Straight in.
Okay. Welcome to Sharon Osborne on Sound Your Soul
No,
podcast.
no, Claire Osborne.
Claire Osborne on Sound Your Soul podcast. Take it away, Claire.
Hi. What is there anything particularly that you'd like to
Okay,
ask me? Or
okay. How did you become a yoga instructor?
okay. That's a long time ago that I started. Well, I'm a yoga teacher and I'm a yoga therapist as well. And so yeah, I became a yoga teacher because I was actually working as a massage therapist
I
for a
see.
number of years.
Okay.
And I was practicing yoga myself, just for myself. Um, but I was finding that some of the techniques from yoga I was starting to bring in with my clients because
Okay.
I was feeling like I had people coming who were their issues kind of were repeating, and a lot of it was to do with lifestyle.
Okay. So,
And
okay.
so yeah, so I
What's,
wanted to kind of train to support them really.
what sort of issues did your clients have?
At that point in time, it was things like, well, I remember one client in particular, um, it was a repetitive shoulder injury, and it was very much lifestyle,
Okay.
not even an injury, but a shoulder issue, but it was a very much lifestyle related. And so we would spend times talking about lifestyle and what was contributing to that issue and ways that basically that person could help themselves,
I think that's very incredible.
in
I think
terms of lifestyle adaptation, but also techniques. Yeah.
I think that's very, very brave, and because, like, I mean, a lot of people go around with injuries, and they're not stretching out right, or they could fall or something. And I think that it's a fantastic idea to introduce yoga to your clients.
Yeah. And that was, let me see now, that was in the kind of late 90s. So that was
Oh,
a long time ago.
that's a long, long time.
um,
Wow, that is a long time ago. Yes,
a
yes,
long
yes.
time ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I've been
very
teaching
good.
yoga for about, yeah, I've been teaching yoga for 24 years now.
And what?
So I trained in 99, 2000. Yeah. And then I trained as a yoga therapist in 20, 2011, 2012. I've been practicing as a yoga therapist since 2012. So,
Okay.
and I went to London to do that training. So it
Wow.
wasn't very
And
long.
what inspired you, like, to dive into yoga? What made you, like, what was your passion there? Mhm.
I don't, it's a funny thing, I think, and probably a lot of people will resonate this with you kind of find yourself in something and it just clicks,
Okay. Very
The
good.
first yoga class I went to, I just felt like I'd come home.
Wow.
Um,
That must have been
yeah,
incredible.
it was just, and not in any kind of big fireworks, bells and whistles kind of a way, but just
Yeah.
like, oh, and I felt myself. Um, I think I was lucky enough to have a really wonderful, very authentic teacher at the
Wow.
time. And, this was kind of in the mid 90s. So it was before all the kind of the circus that goes on around yoga now.
Yes. And so
Which
what?
is, which I struggle with really, the kind of, the social media stuff and the Instagram
Yes.
posts and all
Yes.
that kind of
Okay.
stuff is just a world apart from what it was like when I first started
So
practicing
how
in the
would
one.
you, okay, so how would you introduce yoga to your clients if they were like a bit nervous or a bit anxious or a bit stressed out?
Well, let me see. Well, you see the thing, yeah. So I think people, do you mean nervous about doing the yoga or just generally that's a kind of
Nervous, like
constitutionally the sort of,
that they might make a mistake, or nervous that, like, they
oh, yeah.
can't do a pose, or
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I think a lot of beginners might come with that, go
Yeah.
with that kind of feeling. I also, I mean, I work with a lot of older people, a lot of work, especially with the yoga therapy, but also I teach chair yoga. So I
Oh,
work, and I've worked with people with special needs and
can,
people within the autistic spectrum and
that's a
all
fantastic.
sorts.
That
So
is, yes, that is fantastic. Like that you
yeah,
help people with special needs. I think that's incredible.
yeah,
I think you do
yeah,
incredible work with autistic kids or autistic
yeah. Oh,
adults.
I've worked with so I worked with Coaction for quite a few years, doing
Very
classes with
good.
them. I also had when I was living in Cork, because I lived in Cork City for a while. I'm now based in West Cork,
Okay.
and when I was living in Cork City, I did a series of classes for a school there with kind of teenage boys in the
Okay.
school with autism. Um,
I
and yeah, they resonated with the yoga really well. It was kind of like I met, I, it was their world somehow, you know, especially
yes,
the meditative work and the yoga nidra and all that kind of stuff. It really
because
worked for them.
I think autistic kids like and adults are like are very clever. They're very like they're very
Mm.
they pick
Yeah,
up things pretty quick. Well, some of them
yeah,
pick up things pretty
definitely.
quick. And
Yeah, and they have, in my experience, they have a kind of sensitivity,
yes, yes.
you
And
know,
and
which are kind of like I said, the kind of the meditative practices, they just went so deep. The people I worked with anyway, they kind of, but maybe it's also, I think that might, I'm wondering if that might be something to do with safety and that
yes,
creating a safe space. You know, I've also done a lot of work and research around working in a trauma informed way. So, like presently with my yoga therapy clients, I find I'm often working with people who have, I mean, you could say we all have a degree of trauma in our
yes, yes,
background.
yes, we could.
I
Yes.
think there's few of us who escape that. But I've been working, it just seems to be the case that this past year anyway, that people who are coming to me, the trauma is kind of front and center of their
Okay.
of what it is that they're kind of wanting to I don't want to say
Because
work because it's not work, but you know, give their attention to.
I think a lot of people like with trauma, I think they sometimes hide it and
Mm.
they cover it up a bit and
Yeah.
some of them
Oh,
can't get
absolutely.
through it.
Yeah. We have
And
to, you know, that we have to because it's
mm,
that's how we maintain. So after the body has this incredible way of kind of keeping ourselves safe. So
yeah,
even when we've had an experience where we didn't feel safe, um, the body and the nervous system and the brain will adapt in ways where that gets kind of packaged
yes,
and
yes,
put
yes,
in a way in our system. Like the brain has a way of kind of filtering that information. So for many people, the brain will kind of change the memory and kind of
yes,
split it
memory.
apart so that it's not a kind of we're not dealing with the whole memory and experience in a complete package. The brain kind of splits it apart.
Yeah,
So we might just recall fragments, if anything, you know. But where it is often stored in a more complete way is in the body. And
yeah,
this is where I feel like something like yoga therapy is really helpful because it works directly with the body. And I'm not talking about kind of working with catharsis because I don't feel like, in my experience anyway, I don't
yes,
feel like that's helpful. But
okay.
it's more what they call in psychotherapy a sort of bottom up approach where
Oh.
we're allowing the body to take its time to find its own way to healing. Um,
And
and
in that experience, would they feel like they're shifting their energy or they're moving their energy around or
yeah, that varies. You see, for some people don't work on the energetic level at all.
okay,
That's not their field of experience.
right,
And
very good.
um, but they would certainly. I mean, yes, in some cases, people feel changes of energy and energy moving around, but some people might feel it as a sort of a softening in the body or
Okay.
a tension releasing, and they might only realize that tension has released because it's not there anymore. They might not even recognize that it was present until it's
To
gone.
the gone. Yes, exactly.
And sometimes, you know, emotions come like tears come,
Yes.
or
And
um,
and
you
how
know,
would
it's
you
generally quite soft.
yes, and how would you if some client was had tears coming, what how would you cope with that? Or do you let them alone, or do you talk to them,
Yeah.
or
No, no, no. You just let
okay,
it happen. It's you
that's
see,
good.
if you think of
Yeah,
any emotion, really, it's energy moving.
good. That's good. Yeah,
It's life moving, So you just let it move through.
it's
Of
very good.
course, I'd check and see if they're
Yes,
okay,
yes, yes.
and give them a tissue, or
Exactly. I
Um,
think,
but
yeah,
I think one has to be careful in those moments of
yes,
about what one says, because one can interfere with the process,
yeah,
or like if we're over sympathizing, somehow we can take that experience away from them,
yes,
kind of
yeah,
interrupt it in some way.
yeah,
So we
because
actually, I think, as any kind of therapist, you have to really monitor your own experiences,
yes,
um,
and
and
and just let
recognize what your own response is to it, and am I okay with this? Because
yes.
if I'm blocking someone's emotion in some way, it's only because I have some kind of discomfort.
Mm. I think that's
So
incredible. I think that's a very powerful point that you're making. That like you're stepping back from people who are crying, and you're stepping back from that because you're protecting your space, and they're protecting their space because you just let it happen. I think that's a very powerful thing to say.
absolutely,
Hmm.
yeah, we do. We have to mind, as therapists, we have to mind what we absorb, not to take
Yes,
on somebody
yes,
else's
yes,
process. But at
yeah.
the same time, like, there have been times where I might maybe just like hold someone's feet. I mean, with permission, I might
Yeah.
just say, I kind of feel like I'd like to just hold your feet at the moment. And how would you like that? And if they say yes or no, then, or if there's any pause in their response to me, I take that as a no.
Okay.
If there's any doubt, I take that as a no.
I think that's
Um,
very fantastic work. I think I think you're a very calm person that like that that
not
you
always. Really,
I
not
think you're
always.
a calm person because you come off like really like, and I'll do this and that. It's this very calming approach. I think you might have a calming approach to people. Mm.
Yes, well, I mean, that also comes from years and years of personal practice and
Yes,
experience.
yes,
I
that's
mean,
it.
I remember the first yoga retreat I ever went to, and this was in my mid 20s. Um, it was I'm a naturally kind of really fidgety, restless person.
Right. Okay.
Um, and so I'm the sort of person, if I'm sitting watching telly, I'll be like, kind of
No
fidgeting all
way.
over.
Oh,
So
very
it's
good.
quite, I mean, I think my body just likes to move, maybe
Right.
that's it,
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's no coincidence that I've worked with movement and yoga and stuff,
Yes.
and body-based stuff. But the first yoga retreat I went to, I remember we're sitting outside doing a meditation, lovely summer's day,
Yes.
but the flies were like really interested in us.
Right. Oh no.
I had this fly just kind of crawling across my lip, and
Oh no.
the teacher was kind of sitting there going, just be really present, notice what's going on, notice your sensations. And she named that the flies were buzzing around, and just, ignore them. It's a very kind of particular thing in yoga sometimes, or I mean, other, not, other meditation practices as well, of just kind of just
Yeah.
stay really present and stay still and really focus on your practice. Don't let yourself be disturbed.
Yes.
Um, anyway, this fly was working its way across my top.
Oh
And
no. Oh, you paused. Oh, you paused.
sorry for the interruption. My phone just went off.
That's okay.
So this fly was working its way across my top lip,
Yes.
and eventually I just blew it off.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the teacher went, "Can you not just sit still?"
No
I
way.
think she was getting a bit annoyed by the flies too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh, wow.
like calmness and composure, whatever. That was 30 years ago.
Yes, that's 30
So
years.
I think obviously I've done a personal practice of
Yes.
yoga, and I do a kind of movement work called immersive movement as well, which is like a free form movement
Oh,
practice,
that's interesting.
which is really wonderful work. Yeah, it's wonderful work. Not many people know about it. I'm one of only two people in Ireland who actually teach that work.
That is,
And
can you tell me more about
the
that?
immersive, yeah. Um, go bouncing around all over the place. It's great.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of strings to my bow. I've just trained as a art therapist as well. I've just finished a master's in art therapy, so that's going to
Wow,
be
that's
weaving on
incredible.
that.
You've got
But
all sorts of
yeah,
tricks now.
I've done all sorts.
Very good.
I'm a bit of an obsessive learner. I just can't
Yeah.
help myself.
Wow.
I love learning.
And
Um, but I think also when you're dedicated to your practice, and your work, I think it evolves anyway. I think you naturally want to, you get so far and you go, oh, I need to learn this.
right.
I always have the kind of the symbol, it's the image of like you go through a doorway, like say my first yoga teacher training.
Yes.
It's like going through a doorway, and then you realize you're in this room with all these other doorways.
Right. Oh, very good. Yes,
And then
yes,
you go through the next door, and there's another room, lots of other so it's kind of
yes.
endless. But the Amrita movement, so that is a really wonderful practice. Amrita movement was created by an Indonesian movement master, really, called
Wow.
Suprapto Suryodharma. From
Wow.
And I happened to come across him because I did a movement workshop with someone and loved her work, asked her about where I could train more in it, and she pointed me in his direction.
Yeah.
And when I worked with him, it was another one of those wow, all the lights went on moments of.
Right.
I mean, first time I worked with him, I went to a 10-day intensive with him in Holland, and I just came away feeling like I'm not sure what happened there, but it was amazing, and
Wow.
it kind of really stuck. Something in me completely shifted, and
Right. That's
so
incredible.
Amerta is really, it's about kind of daily life movement. So you could be, and you're following the impulse of whatever your body wants to do
Okay.
in that
Yes.
movement in that moment. So it's, some people say it's a bit like dance improvisation. Some people might know about authentic movements, so it might be like that.
Okay.
So you're just, in a moment feeling like, well, like I just put my hands here. So that,
Okay.
that's a body impulse. And we're doing these body impulses all the time. It's about being conscious of them. So
It's
if I'm moving, say, I might decide I can move for 10 minutes and then I might start like this and then feel like, yeah, I just want to move my hands like this and then see my fingers. And then I have an urge to
stretch.
do that. And,
Yeah.
and then my back and then something about, so you're in each moment really feeling like, what do I want to do? What wants to
That,
happen here?
that sounds absolutely amazing. That sounds
It's
incredible. Like,
fantastic.
I mean, Claire, that is it. That is that. Like, I mean, it's like being in the present moment of your true being. Like, I suppose.
Yes,
And
it
and
is really.
and
Yeah.
it's like, you're grasping, you're going, oh, these are my hands, these are my fingers, this is my face, and you're touching everywhere, recognizing
Yeah.
like your body parts, and just probably embracing them more so, like as that is
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it does. Yeah, in a way, yeah, because it does draw from like Prada Prapto's background was, many strands, but part of his background was Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy. So there is that kind of element of kind of compassion towards the self,
Yes.
um, and present moment awareness and attention, and trying to move more towards who we really are. And this is where kind of yoga and the Amrita practice kind of intersect of like, who are we really?
Yes,
So
that's
we're
true.
noticing how all these movements happen, and the body is doing stuff, and we might be responding to things in our environment. I might
Yes.
want to reach out and touch a flower or a
Yes.
chair, or
Yes.
I might be moving with someone else and notice them lifting their arm and go, and then feel like, oh, I've got an arm as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's
The mirroring
amazing.
goes on. It's a way of, it's very hard to talk about because like any of these practices that are really experiential,
Okay.
it's very much a process of being, you know? So it's kind of, even after I've now been doing that practice, that particular work since 1997
Okay.
and teaching it for about 24 years as well.
Wow.
So even now, I still finding words and a language for it is difficult because it's so in the moment and it's so experiential.
And would you find that, like, I mean, would people pick that up, easy, or would they find it hard, or would they find it easy at first, or
Yeah.
how would you introduce it? Like,
Yeah, very, it really varies. I know
okay,
some people don't take to it at all,
okay,
um, because it's quite structureless. Now, when I'm teaching, I do try to guide,
yeah,
and it depends on the experience. So if I've got someone who's a really experienced dancer in a space, I might not need to give much instruction at all.
yeah,
You know,
okay,
just a little like little bit
yeah,
every now and again.
yeah, of course,
With
yeah,
someone new to it, I need to give quite a lot of direction because something about being in that work, because it's a formless practice, we meet the kind of what I would say the empty space where
yeah.
we don't know what we're doing
I think
and we
that's
don't know what
perfect.
comes next, you know,
Yes, yes,
which, and I've seen this say like in art therapy. I'm really curious about that space in art therapy as well, and in yoga therapy, where we kind of let go of, I know what I'm doing.
I
We
think
let go
that's,
of the
yeah,
kind of the script of this is how I get from A to B.
yes, I
And
think
we
that's
really kind of
incredible.
let
I
ourselves
really,
be in the moment. And
mhm,
for some people, that's just too much, maybe.
yeah,
Or for some people, they need structure. They're more comfortable with structure.
yeah,
Some people arrive into the Emerta movement and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love
yeah,
it. I feel like a child again. My
yeah,
body's doing exactly what it wants to do, and it's just brilliant. So there's a real freedom in it.
yes,
So it's just, I think it depends on personality. It depends on where you're at in your life. It depends on your conditioning. And I kind of, with the Emerta, I say that, you know, our bodies knew how to do that when we were children. And then
yeah,
slowly, you know, we
yeah,
watch children, babies, they're very spontaneous in their movement. And
yes,
then as life goes on, it's like, okay, so you go to school and it's like, well, you sit at in that chair for 40 minutes.
yeah,
And then you might go to another classroom and you sit in another chair for 40 minutes. And you
yeah,
have a break and you can do what you like in the break,
yeah,
but you've got between these two bells ringing to do that. And then you're back. So it's like our physical experience gets narrower and narrower.
yeah.
And then we might do sports or that kind of stuff, but there's still a kind of very specific goal around, you know, like I played loads of netball and hockey when I was in
Yes,
school, and
yes,
it's like you're running up and down a pitch,
yes, exactly,
not
exactly,
linear,
exactly.
you know.
Oh,
So yeah,
and
so it's
I think
really liberating for
it
some, but
is very
overwhelming for
liberating.
others. Yeah.
I think it's very liberating, and it's fantastic that you have such knowledge of all the yogas you have, all the experience you have, like you have such great knowledge of it all, and
Mm.
it's fantastic to learn more about yoga and Ati, and what you were saying. I think it's incredible. You know,
Yeah,
really
it's a vast like
yes. Yes, it is very fast. And
it's
it's like you're keeping evolving all the time and you want to learn more and
mm,
more and more.
mm,
And there's that you can spend a lifetime learning
yeah.
and having all that knowledge. And it's really, really good, powerful to have, like, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
It's fantastic. And yeah. And how did you like what can I say about yoga? Would you do in yoga? Would you do sort of would sort of Reiki come up in yoga,
Well,
or
um,
is that the thing, or is that just
let me see how and think about how I can answer that.
hmm,
Um, so in yoga we have five bodies.
yes,
There's
okay,
a five kind of five body structure where the first or they're called the koshas,
yes,
or koshas means sheath. It's kind of layers of being.
wow,
First is the physical body. The second is the mental and emotional body. And the third is what they call the pranamaya kosha, and that is the energy body.
okay,
Um, the fifth one is the Vijnanamaya kosha. That's to do with instinct and intuition and insight and kind of inner wisdom. And then the last, the Anandamaya kosha, is to do with bliss, to do with, um, you know, when you say follow your joy,
yes,
follow your
follow
bliss,
your joy,
it's kind of
yes,
that feeling of your own inner bliss, what kind of sparks you up, but also kind of there is like oneness, I suppose, you know, that
yes,
part of us that is. And then that's kind of the manifestation of the being in the world sort of thing. And then beyond that, you have, well, there's so many ways to talk about this, but
Yes, yes.
one that comes to mind is the Atman, or the soul, or the self, which is kind of the pure being, which is none of that.
Okay,
Um,
none of that. Okay.
so I think to kind of I don't know much about Reiki,
Yes, okay.
but I know tiny bits about spiritual,
Yes, okay.
energy healing and stuff. My brother's
Yes.
has practiced energy healing, and
Okay.
I've done. Sometimes I just intuitively kind of do that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so
And
the pranamaya kosha, I suppose,
yes,
is the bit, the energy body, and there are various ways of working with the energetic system in yoga. Um,
and
I yeah. I'm more likely to do that kind of thing in one-to-one work, because I
okay.
think in general classes it's a bit,
Yes.
it can feel a bit woo-woo.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
okay,
you know?
okay.
It's a
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
abstract.
Okay.
I don't know how people will respond to that.
No.
But I tend to link the energy body with the breath, because they
Okay.
are interconnected, and
So it's
that's
a
generally in yoga how we work with the energy bodies, through
so
the
the
breath,
breath is
not just through the breath, but often through the breath.
so the breath is very important for
Um,
yoga to becoming to when you're breathing in, to becoming into your to the center of yourself when you're breathing. Or is that
yeah, I mean, that's another kind of like open the door, boom,
no way. So
kind of things with the breath, because that's vast. I have quite a particular interest in the breath, because I'm very
yes,
interested using it as part of therapy, not just using breath as a therapeutic tool, but also how our breathing patterns show up. Um, when we've experienced trauma,
yeah,
accidents, injuries, that kind of stuff, often it shows up in our breathing pattern,
yes.
or kind of certain restrictions in our personality or our conditioning can show up in breathing patterns. So I'm quite interested in
That
that. And the nervous system and the breath are very, very connected. So
wow. Because
interesting.
someone could have trapped air or like when they're breathing like that breathing, it could be trapped or it could be they could be breathing
It's
or
more that, so I mean, the air is not going to get trapped, because it'll come in and then it'll go out again.
okay.
It just
Right.
does.
Okay, well that
but,
okay.
but what happens is we might have tension in the
Yeah.
muscles. That
Okay.
so the breathing is a muscular process.
Okay.
Certain muscles contract and then release to make breathing happen. The lungs are a kind of a passive organ. They don't, their lungs only expand and then empty, because, say, muscles contract in the rib cage, which lifts it up and then creates more space for the lungs, for
Okay.
example, or the diaphragm contracts and drops down, that creates more space for lungs. So when you're looking at issues with the breathing, you're looking what's happening in the muscles, and also in the fascia, although that's a field of expertise which I haven't discovered anything about yet. Not because I don't
Okay.
want to. It's just, I've only got so much time. I know
Okay.
some people are very passionate about the fascia, the connective tissue of the body,
Yes,
and
yes,
that, of course, is another part of what affects our breathing,
yes.
which I wish I knew about.
I
Don't
know.
yet.
It's I think it's
Yeah.
incredible. I think your work is fantastic in yoga and everything. I mean, you got so much knowledge. It's crazy. And it's fantastic because you're like a walking yoga book like because
And yet I'm, it's funny. I mean, it's lovely you say that, and thank you.
yeah,
I always feel aware of what I don't know.
yes, yes,
But then, of course, it is so vast. It's a science, and it's a lifetime of study,
yes,
and you've got all the facts, and there's hundreds, thousands of books, and
yes,
ancient
yes,
texts, and one can come in come into it at any different number of thousands of different angles. And even just doing a yoga pose, you get 10 teachers in a room, and they'll all tell you a different way to kind of
yeah,
look at that pose,
exactly.
and explore that pose. So,
So do you think
mm.
do you think in yoga that people oh my time is nearly up. Um shoot. Do you think in yoga like pe people will like will learn differently? That yeah, of course they're going to learn differently and
Mm.
some people might struggle with learning, and some people might go, okay, that's great. But I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, the question.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay. I think, well, just in quick response, I think one thing that is coming to mind as you're speaking is that people can often come to a yoga class with this perception of, they might even say, oh, I'm not going to be any good at this, you know,
okay. Yes.
or I'm
Okay.
not particularly flexible, and it's like yoga actually is something to be good at
Okay.
because bottom line is, for me, yoga, the word yoga means union. It comes from a root yog, which means to yoke together or to connect together. And it's about connecting with yourself, really.
Okay. Yes.
So, like say
Perfect.
all the physical practices, people take that for yoga, moving around and bending up and, up and down, whatever. Which, that's part of yoga practice, but the intention of it is to bring you to yourself. It's to release blockages and recognize the things that get in our way and understand who we are and develop more self-awareness, to recognize the functioning of the mind,
Okay.
because one of the main, one of the yoga texts that people often refer to are the Yoga Sutras and Patanjali, and most of that is about your relationship with your mind, or the role of the mind and how the mind functions.
I
So
think that's
a
very
lot of the
beautiful.
purpose of yoga is to settle into quietness and to move beyond all these kind of manifestations of the worldly self and return to the
Yourself.
soul, I suppose.
And your
Yeah.
sorry, it's going to be 1 minute timing up. Sorry to cut you off.
That's all right.
All right. I really appreciate you coming on and talking. And
Thank
I
you.
I learned so much from you today. And you
Thank
are
you for your
still, in my
questions.
eyes, a walking
Yeah.
yoga book because you're
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you. And can I just mention my website?
Yes. Oh God. Yes. Sorry. Yes. I
Which
forgot to
so
mention that. Sorry.
my website is yogaandmovement.com.
Yogamovement.com. Okay.
Yogaandmovement.com.
Mhm.
And I'm also on Facebook.
Okay. Yoga.
And yeah,
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. It was very much, I
thank you
much
so much,
appreciate it.
Susan.
Thank you very
Lovely
much.
talking with you.
Lovely
Thank
talking to
you.
you.
Have a
Okay.
good
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.